Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the C Morning Show. Now, in our second segment for the talk show, we're going to talk about something that I'm really passionate about, and that is youth diplomacy, where the Y20 Forum was recently held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, on August the 16th to the 17th, and Indonesia sent 5 of its delegates.
Great, and that's right, Jasmine. These 5 delegates had delivered some policies proposal as representative of nation youth perspective. So to get broader knowledge about these proposals and their impact for our diplomacy, joining us in the studio, one of Indonesian delegates for Y20 Brazil, Muhammad Syaeful Mujab. Good morning, Mujab. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, Mujab, can you explain more? Like the first question would be, what is Y20?
Y20 is a acronym for G20 Youth Forums. Actually, it's official engagement group for the youth in the G20. So the result of the Y20 is the Y20 communique that should be delivered to the G20 leader state forums. So actually, in the G20 forum itself, we have 2 tracks, Sherpa tracks and also financial tracks. Sherpa tracks, we talk about many official engagement groups, such as Youth 20, Civil 20, Women 20, that each engagement groups should be representing the unique perspective of their entity.
Right. And I think we talked a little bit backstage that you were explaining a little bit on the numbers of people that are joining this. So you say 5 people from Indonesia, but at the same time, there's also 5 segments, and that makes up from 25 different delegates, was it?
Yeah.
So
we have 5.
Explain the parts of the discussion or the key initiatives that you have indulged in personally, and the other initiatives that your peers might also be interested in.
Yeah, okay. We have 5 Indonesian delegates that each delegate representing Indonesia in each tracks. So we have climate tracks, poverty tracks, global governments, future of work, and also diversity track. So each Indonesian delegate represents Indonesian perspective on that tracks, along with other 19 G20 youth delegates and also observer delegates, such as from Singapore, African Union, and also other countries.
Right, so from the Y20 Brazil Forum, what really is the outcome for the Y20 project? Because, you know, as you said, it is the extension of the G20, right?
Yep.
But this is the youth program.
Yep.
So what is it that you, as a youth, are trying to achieve in this union?
Yes, we try to reach consensus on the Y20 communique. So the Y20 communique in this year consists of at least 75 proposals that comes from the 15 each proposal from each tracks.
Yeah.
So we are trying to comprehend the proposals based on our perspective and also based on the discussions and negotiations in each tracks. So after the Y20 summit, each delegations from each country have a responsibility to deliver the Y20 communique for the G20 leaders. So that in the G20 forums in November 2024, the communique that resulted in the G20 could reflect the youth perspective on it.
All right, so with Indonesia now hosting the Indonesia-Africa Forum and the next Y20 in South Africa. So what are the potential for youth diplomacy collaboration and discussion and opportunities with Africa?
So actually during the summit, Indonesia and South Africa has worked closely and so many proposals. For example, we agreed to push the agenda towards Gaza. So we call the ceasefire in Gaza and also release the hostage, and also the lifting the humanitarian aid blockades that happen currently in Gaza. So during the summit, we have worked closely with South Africa, and also we also have contacted with the South Africa organizations to, because back in 2022, we were the host for the Y20, so we are more than ready to transfer knowledge and deliver what's the important things in hosting the Y20 in the futures. And don't forget, Indonesia is the strong alliance of Africa. We host the Asians Africa forums back in 1955. So
It's a continuation,
it's a
really,
continuations,
of
yeah.
the strong diplomatic ties. Now, on that note earlier, you said about, you talked about the Gaza catastrophe that is
Yeah.
happening. What were the reactions or inputs from other delegates? Because even in the World Forum with
Yeah.
a lot of these high-level delegates and leaders, it is already a complicated
Yep.
topic.
Yeah.
So I wonder, give us an image of what it is like for the youth to discuss something so sensitive that a lot of us see most of the time because
Yeah.
of the digital era.
Yeah, the things is, international delegates do not necessarily represent their governments. For Indonesia itself, we come from the independent and non-profit organizations called Indonesian Delegate, but we have very strong relationship with the government. So during the negotiations, we consulted with the foreign ministers to get approval and also to align our stance to Indonesian
Values.
governments as well. But other country that they're not necessarily to represent their country. For example, the U.S. We know that how the U.S. have a
Reaction
very
towards
the government, yeah.
strong against
Yeah.
what happened in Gaza,
Yeah.
and it's very very supportive to Israel
Yeah.
in Gaza case. But
Yeah.
the
But
U.S.
here is different.
here is different. The U.S. delegates, one of the strong supporter to include the ceasefire proposals in the Y20 communique. And also in my tracks, we focus on the humanitarian aid blockade that, as Indonesian delegates, at that times, I see that it become pointless. All international delegates gather in Rio, but there's no point addressing the ongoing catastrophic starvations in Gaza. So at that time, the U.S. delegate was one of the supporters of my proposals. So it's very unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is very interesting to see, especially because these are, involving younger people who are more aware of these
Yeah.
situations in
Yeah.
general. And, a lot of us, we can't, it's hard for
Yes.
people to lie to our generation, really.
So the thing is, in the Y20, we also try to give another perspective to the G20 leader states. So, for example, and in my track, we're also discussing about school feeding programs. It's kind of resonate with the national interests,
Yeah.
the future government interests. So we are trying to give them input how to do the school feeding programs correctly and effectively to address poverty and inequality.
Which is
And-
what Brazil has done.
Yeah.
And how has it progressing so far in terms of that specific discussion?
About school feeding
Yeah.
programs. So basically, a school feeding program is one of the strong proposals that proposed it by Brazil. So as I heard for now, I have contacted some of contact point in the future governments. Indonesia tend to include themselves in the global alliance for combating poverty and also inequality.
Yeah.
And through the school feeding programs, we are trying to do better in terms of alleviating poverty and hunger.
All right.
So it's very similar to essentially what we are trying to do as a
Yeah.
nation
Yeah.
as well. So it fits perfectly, really. But I want to know, what are the unique experiences that you've encountered in this forum, and what are the differences that you've probably experienced from different ones or the upcoming one?
Yeah. 20 delegates with 20 different perspectives. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
A
difficult.
mouthful.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult to reach a consensus. And in the Y20, communique should be reached by the consensus. So one disagreement is very strong than one agreement.
I see.
Yeah, so it's very difficult to convince some countries. For example, in the Gaza proposals, I did so many bilateral negotiations with the country. I cannot mention the country.
Why not? All right.
Discretion.
The country that, have a strong against the issue of Gaza because of that country have a very different opinion towards Gaza.
He was about to slip up there.
In my tracks, the proposal not necessarily mentions about Gaza, but also including the Sudan and also Congo that also experience the humanitarian aid blockade. So because of that, I have a very strong supporter for African Union. So so because of it, the proposal about Gaza can be included in the communique.
Wow, that's fabulous.
Let's talk about from your perspective now as you pass the youth diplomacy legacy to future delegates. So what advice can you give for them especially?
First thing, we do not necessarily represent the government, so we have to have very unique perspective in order to make policy better. And the second thing, 5 delegates is too little compared to Indonesian youth populations. So I think it is very pivotal for Indonesian youth delegations to have strong engagement with the youth. So we did that. We had so many focus group discussions, youth engagement with youth around Indonesia in order to make sure that our proposals is reflecting that the problem that Indonesian youth really facing in the daily life. So I think it's very important to engage vertically and also horizontally.
Do you use social media for that as well?
Yes.
So your way of engaging the youth is through engagement. But I want to know from your perspective yourself, what are your hopes for the Indonesian youth diplomacy?
Yes, I think very important in the international forum, Indonesia, push the South perspective agenda because in this very dominated North perspective agenda, we have to be more focal to make more just and equitable world, aiding the South perspective. So I think it's a very good opportunity because past Y20, India, Indonesia, Brazil, and next year in South Africa, we are actually have the South perspective. So I think it's very important for future delegates to aid more South perspective to make the world not only dominated by the North perspective.
All right.
Wow. This is very exciting because, this is this is music to my ears, really. But
we need to be more vocal.
We have to. But, best of luck with everything that you're going to be exploring in the future. And I hope that, you can be one of the leaders for, a lot of the youth to aspire to be one day.
We need more of you.
Yeah, more of youth. Well, that is unfortunately the time that we have for now. Thank you so much for joining us here in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mujab.
Thank you.
Exactly, but unfortunately we have to take a break, but we still have more updates from around Southeast Asia when we return, so stay with us only on the C Morning Show at C Today.